Please go ahead, sir. We are live.
Thank you so much, Anup. Thank you so much. Good afternoon, dear ladies and gentlemen, dear audience. Myself, Neeraj Arora, and I look after the GEM Green Building Certification Program of ASSOCHAM. So, on behalf of ASSOCHAM GEM Green Building Council, I would like to welcome you all for this wonderful webinar on river rejuvenation. So, this topic is, very specifically selected because we are talking on sustainability, green buildings on, since many years, days, months, and so on. So we thought that we should specifically talk on, our, how people are giving life to our Indian dead rivers. So that's why an initiative is taken by architect Leena G, who is the chairperson of ASSOCHAM's GEM Karnataka chapter. So she has and her team has specifically designed this topic, and we are lucky enough that we have Dr. Lingaraju Yale with us today. Dr. Lingaraju Yale is a very well-known person, and he talks about how his team has been working to bring back to life 43 dried up rain-fed rivers and water bodies spread across 5 states over the last 7 years. So, friends, I must tell you that today is going to be a very wonderful discussion. So, I would request you all to please stay with us and listen to the keynote speaker. Other than this, we have with us architect Leena Kumar, as I mentioned. She is the chairperson of GEM Karnataka chapter. We have with us Ms. Nandini Sundar, who is the executive member, GEM Karnataka chapter. And we have Mr. Shivakumar ji with us. So I once again welcome you all to this wonderful webinar. Now, I would not take much of your time and would like to invite Leena Kumar ji to please share the thematic address with the audience. Over to you, madam.
Thank you, Neeraj. The Karnataka chapter of ASSOCHAM GEM was formed about 2.5 months ago, and we will remain always grateful that our chapter was inaugurated by the late Sri Suresh Angadi, our beloved Union Minister from Belgaum, Karnataka, who left for his heavenly abode last month. A great believer in sustainable development, we continue with his blessings and in his memory. The word sustainable is a fairly commonly used word today, and with its common place in our vocabulary, the meaning of the word has become very ambiguous and blurred. We at GEM Karnataka, or the Green and Eco-Friendly Movement as the word stands for, will attempt to decodify the word to its simple and unadulterated understanding. In keeping with this objective, and to begin the journey of our chapter, we have with us today for our first webinar, Dr. Lingaraju Yale, a passionate believer in the rejuvenation of water bodies as an important long-term sustainable solution. The idea of sustainability begins at the macro level, goes down to the micro level, and we will begin our series of webinars from the macro level and river rejuvenation. Let me introduce very briefly to you Dr. Lingaraju to understand his long career with geohydrology and his devotion to his chosen path. Dr. Lingaraju Yale is a well-known and highly respected geohydrologist in India and was formerly the director of the Karnataka State Remote Sensing Application Center. He was also the director of the Geomatic Center and Water Resource Development Organization, Government of Karnataka. His long and illustrious career in the field of geohydrology spans over 5 decades. He has guided many engineering students, and he is also a popular science writer. His projects include the district-wise mapping of land use, of land cover, wasteland, wetland in Karnataka. He handled the rejuvenation of degraded streams as well as the action plan for reclamation of waterlogged areas. Other important projects have been in the areas of groundwater exploration, watershed development, mineral exploration and mapping, and sustainable development of drought-prone districts. We always fluctuate, we tend to fluctuate between droughts and floods, and different areas have either one of them. He has developed water resource information systems for river basins. Dr. Lingaraju has served as an expert member in initiatives in groundwater resources, drinking water management, flood mitigation methodologies, artificial recharge, dam safety, studies on impact of tunneling, irrigation, and application of geomatic techniques for water resources, planning, and investigations. He's currently the National Director for River Rejuvenation Projects by the Art of Living. Under the able leadership of Dr. Lingaraju Yale, the River Rejuvenation team has taken up projects to revive more than 40 streams, rivulets, and rivers. Over to Dr. Lingaraju, and for us to learn something about, at least to begin the journey of learning about rivers, its importance, and its rejuvenation. Dr. Lingaraju.
Good afternoon, everybody. I thank the organizers for giving me this opportunity to share our experiences and our future plans with respect to the rejuvenation of river. You know the problems we are facing by not taking care of the river. River is actually misunderstood as a commodity for water utilization rather than it is a nature given renewable water resource management technique, and we are facing a lot of problems for even suicides of the farmers, shortage of drinking water, so many issues which everybody know. And to address this had been my passions because I worked nearly 5 decades in this area and came out with a multidisciplinary methodology of understanding the river first, analyze the causative factors which created this problem since 3-4 decades. Earlier, it was having naturally operated integrated water resource management, but because of the drastic land use changes that we made, degradation of the natural vegetation, soil erosion and siltation of the water bodies, these water bodies have dried up because they have become more evaporation plants, and also exploited the groundwater recklessly without thinking how it gets renewed. So the both shallow and deeper aquifers have dried up. People are going for thousands of feet of borewell, but not getting water, and even they are polluted with the mineral contents. This change in and also ultimately all this combined effect is on the changing rainfall pattern and the climate also. So this whatever the balance we have is minus. So these are the slides which will depict how nature makes the fresh water renewable. And this is all everybody know this natural hydrological cycle. But the river means they think it is only trunk stream which flow, but river has the entire natural network of the streams, and it connects the different layers of earth. Like these are the issues. The urbanization is a major issue, and the soil erosion, and the whatever because of the erosion and siltation takes place. Every every rainfall will take a lot of silt to the water bodies. These water bodies were man-made, but they were our ancestors had a forethought to save water during the summer, and that's how the small water bodies were built. But we focused on the major reservoirs rather than the water bodies because we are not getting good water to these tanks. So over exploitation of the groundwater took place, and there is minus balance. So more water is getting evaporated and running off to the sea, and no much water is left for the utilization, and utilization is also being increased. So how to bring this balance was the question, and because I worked with Karnataka State Remote Sensing and the ISRO, we came out with some innovative solutions to how this all that whatever is being talked, integrated water source management, sustainable development goals. These satellite images are very useful for me to comprehend the information, look at the whole synoptic way of uh, learning the things, what feature relates to what, where the streams are running, where are the water bodies, that kind of relating it to the vegetation cover. All these kind of causative factors could be recognized, and the action plans were prepared with the basic ground information to also select where to do and what. So the more than that, the one is scientific plan. The second is very important is community mobilization. People have to understand the issues and also how to solve this problem. So we worked with Narega, where they were also educated with the mobile apps and to locate the sites which we select depending on the remote sensing. And demand side also is a must to find out how to optimally utilize this resource which is getting dwindled. Both we have this baseline data and also the changes that we can that are being taken place with the help of remote sensing and data analysis has been made. So this gave me a paved way to understand nature. The nature, this river means it is not just a trunk stream, it flows. People visualize the river as a course of water, but it is a network of natural streams with a catchment area. So every drop of water falling on the basin will just accrue, and also it will join and soak the soil, then enrich the shallow aquifer, then deep aquifer, and also it come out through the streams as the base flow during even summer. That's how we had the perennial rivers. So the perennial rivers became semi-perennial, semi-perennial rivers became almost dry. So the word dead, I don't agree. The rivers are not dead. It is possible to bring back the life. They are dried up and degraded. So to rejuvenate these rivers, we have been attempting since almost 7-8 years, along with teams of volunteers, because the community mobilization is possible when they look at the team. Our team, we started working in Kumudvati, and our spiritual leader Sri Ravi Shankar Guruji blessed us, and also he did a walkathon and called for the youths to join me. So that's how hundreds of volunteers joined me, and we started our work in Kumudvati, where I prepared the plan of action, and these action plans were given to the uh, volunteers, and even this started simultaneously in the Vedavati River with the help of Rural Development Department, adopting the Narega schemes. So some simple techniques are adopted, but it is properly cited, because what we have to do, where we have to do is very important. The final solution is to bring back the natural vegetation, which will reduce the soil erosion and recharge groundwater. Each tree will recharge the groundwater by way of the botany, who do botanical principles are there. That is, each root we have each tree have a root system which will attract the water molecules and pump it to the canopy. Simultaneously, it allows the water to reach the gravity zone where the gravity will take the water and fill the aquifers. Aquifers are nothing but porous rocks, gianted rocks, where there will be voids to fill the water, and the entire basin we have layers of aquifers, shallow and deeper aquifers, that gets filled. Once the recharge takes place in the upstream area, the downstream area, the natural streams start flowing. The water moves like a wave from land over the land to the subsurface, and then emerges in the lower altitude as again the surface water. So this kind of wave-like movement, the entire basin, when it happens, it supports the soil moisture. Soil moisture will support the natural vegetation, and natural vegetation in turn makes this cycle complete. So this is the methodology. So that is the final solution. But before planting the trees, it takes time to bring back the natural vegetation as we had earlier. So we had to do some artificial recharge structures. It is called as a managed aquifer recharge in the scientific terminology. We have to manage to recharge the aquifers by construction of what are called as boulder checks. In the picture, you can see number one is natural vegetation we have to bring. It takes a lot of time. But the boulder checks means they are not concrete structures. You carry the heavy rocky boulders, put them in juxtaposition and tighten it. It will allow water to flow slow. It will not stop water, but whenever it rains, nowadays intense rainfall also occur. So the whole month's rain can occur even in a day, or in a day's water can have reached the land in an hour. So the forceful movement of this running water will create more erosion. Erosion and soil is carried by the water to fill our water bodies. These water bodies are nothing but man-made. All our ancestors have built the bund across these natural streams, and the water that uh, gets stored will be available for the people to use it even when there is no rain. That was the arrangement we had. But because the erosion and transportation of the sediments make these lakes fill with silt, and they have become, rather than storage places, they have become evaporation pans. So it is more exposed to the sun. The water spreads as a thin sheet of water. So, and we cannot see how the water escapes back to the sky. So these boulder checks will make the water flow slow, just like we have the humps across these traffic in the roads. We construct every 250 or 300 meters to construct these boulder checks, which will make the water flow slow. The next step is, next to the boulder check, make that water to flow vertically down. Below the soil, we have soft rock, which is highly porous, and this soft rock was the shallow aquifer, which was feeding our open wells earlier, and the entire shallow aquifer has become dry, and open wells have gone to the history. So now, by constructing such recharge wells, they are getting filled up. And this also will be done for every 250 to 300 meters frequency. And the water will, some part of the water will flow vertically down and fill the shallow aquifer. But because nowadays we have gone for deep bore wells, the water has to, and the deep aquifers are also dried up. We plan wherever these lineaments that we delineate from the remote sensing, we know where the fractures and lineaments get intersected. In such places, we go for what are called as injection wells or recharge bore wells, where from the bottom of these recharge wells, you drill a bore and make that water flow vertically down deep up to 200 to 250 feet, where it gets distributed along the fracture pattern of the rocks, and it will also create a sort of confined condition, semi-confined or confined condition, which will spring in the downstream area, and the springs will come back to the life, and the streams will become effluent. So now they all become influent. The streams, whatever this water flows in the stream, also gets seeped down. Now that kind it gets reversed by recharging the rainwater. It will make the rivers flow, and that is the engineers call it as base flow. In scientists they call it as environmental flow, because it makes the water to spread everywhere in the basin, across the streams also, and also different layers, soil, weathered rock and hard rock. So the entire basin gets the water in the form of what we call as groundwater. This groundwater is not stagnant, it also keeps moving, but the difference is the surface runoff reaches the sea very fast, whereas the groundwater flow is very slow. It will sustain till the next recharge takes place. So we go for such recharge bore wells, and also wherever is the two in South India, the tank system is very well known, and our ancestors have done wonderful work of constructing these water bodies. These water bodies are silted up, and as I told you earlier, they are becoming evaporation plants. So at the point of junction of the stream and the water body, we are going for what are called as water pools. This water pool will get the water from the base flow, the groundwater, as well as the surface water. So which will fill it, and then extra water will enter the tank. So these water pools, because they are supported by the groundwater and also the surface water, they have been able to hold the water through the year. Even in some places, in spite of the failure of rain, we have been seeing the water being there, and this will help our cattle to drink water. And around these water pools, we are creating water, the green patches, planting the natural species around, and small parks for the villages. Each village will have such one or two water bodies, and each water body, if we have these water pools, it will have that eco restoration cell at a micro level. So this will sprawl around. This has to sprawl around to bring back the climatic changes, so that it is a model for us to do this. This is the methodology, river rejuvenation methodology. This is one is aquifer recharge. Another is taking these are the work so far done, and we have also been monitoring this. This is a map showing the Kumudvati River, where this is an incomplete, not updated. The entire basin is been covered. This to impact concurrently assess the impact. This study was made because all these injection wells were made as observation bore wells, and we have been measuring the changes that are occurring in different seasons. And these data shows somewhere is soil moisture is increasing, and recharge, prahitic aquifers recharge, the water levels you can see in the lakes and wells, and also the bore wells. Somewhere the one thing is it has reduced the rate of decline, because the rainwater is getting converted into groundwater, and so that kind of declining trend in the fall of the water table is seen. In some places it has raised also, and many failed bore wells have got back to the life, and increase in the yield is also been reported by the farmers. So these are the photos taken. This one is a boulder check, the recharge well, and recharge bore well, and the water pools that are there. So these are the results. Increase in water table, interior observation of the injection wells is also happening, and augmented recharge. But this work of impact assessment was made by an external agency, professional agency, and also the Tata Institute of Social Studies. They have reported good results, and this has inspired us to the network of water flowing is so vast, and people have carried this message and ideas, and Tamil Nadu and Maharashtra is also taking such projects and going on. That's how some number of streams and river tributaries are getting rejuvenated. So these are some of the results. Now we are also adopting the gadgets to measure the water levels. With online measurement is also possible using the IoT sensors, Internet of Things sensors. And online we can even notice this. Karnataka government has established the rain gauge stations, which are telemetry tracking, and we can get the rainfall data also. When we compare this rainfall data and also the structures wherever we have made, there is very good augmentation of the recharge, and we are working towards the optimal utilization also. See, the next one is these are the results, and the latest one is now we are working on the restoration of the wastelands. Large chunks of wastelands are available in the form of hills and hillocks. There, if we can rejuvenate, if we can bring back the greenery, there the springs will get activated and link to the natural stream network. So this will be incomplete. So eco restoration, this managed aquifer recharge, the desiltation of the water bodies, and also agroforestry is very important. People are using groundwater for the agriculture. It is a major share. So by educating the farmers and supporting them to go for agroforestry, agrohorticulture, more tree cover will come, and they will sustainably they will get their income in different seasons, and even the environment is taken care. When once the number of the tree cover area increases, the clouds are attracted and the rainfall occurs normally. So these are some of the things we have been doing, and very importantly, the volunteerism helped me to take this in a big way, and CSR support. In Kumudvati, started with Robert Bosch, and then HAL took in a major way, and many other players joined us, and the entire Kumudvati was more supported by the CSR. And in the other areas like Vedavati, we are depending on the government scheme called Mahatma Gandhi Employment Generation Act, and that is going on. In Polar, similarly, simultaneously, we started with 5 years, and now the eco restoration plan is worked in the origin of Polar. And even in Tamil Nadu, the Naga Nadi is tributary to our Polar. Polar starts from Karnataka and flows through Andhra and Tamil Nadu. In Tamil Nadu, Vellore district, Naga Nadi project was started simultaneously. Now it has almost at the completion stage. It has attracted women folk to work there. So that was identified by Modi ji, and in the Mann Ki Baat, he made a mention of that. And entire Tamil Nadu now, as taking an example of Naganadi, tributary to Pala, more than 4-5 river basins have been taken up, and because of the COVID situation, it is going slow. But the teams are gearing up to continue this. Maybe next rainy season is over, there will be a lot of activities. And even in Maharashtra, the problem is of black cotton soil, which fills the stream network, and the water, there will be splash floods in such regions. Now, because of the removal of the siltation and also going for aquifer recharge, we are getting very good results starting from Latur. In many areas we have power, and this also is inspiration for many people. And even now, Orissa we have entered, Madhya Pradesh is waiting, Andhra we are discussing. So this is going the entire nation, and this will be possible. One thing is, if the CSR support is there, we can very easily we can do it and show it, which will be attracted by the local people, and they can adopt all the government, because the government schemes are a bit slow and some flaws are there. But CSR will show the way, and we need to create models for each basin. India is such a diversified geology. We have several types of rock formation, soil, and this is basis for the river to start flowing. So, according to the geological, geomorphological, and also the climatic conditions, the rivers have come into existence. So these rivers have to be taken as is a living entity, not thinking that it is a water supplier. So it has to reach each and every life system. The water moves in different direction, vertically down, even to the air, vertically up, along horizontally. So it distributes. It is nothing but interplay of uh, atmosphere, hydrosphere, lithosphere, and finally the biosphere, where we are part of it. So we have to take care and understand it in its entirety, the natural processes, and also our development in the whether it is an urban area or it is an intensely agriculture area, the forest area, like that. We have to divide the whole river basins into different units or the watersheds with their inherited character or the changes that have made since 3 to 4 decades, and get back and prepare the plan of action using so many very good technologies like geospatial technology, of using the satellite images, and we have the tools like the geographic information system, where we can organize that data, integrate it, measure it, and do it. And the GPS, which will be helpful for the people at the field level to understand this and do it. So I thank the audience, and I open for the questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lingarajan, for such a lovely presentation. It is true. For you. Well, this was looking at it also from the urban point of view, because I think this is something which whole lot of cities, whole lot of people living in these cities are going to be having these regarding the urban scenario. We are looking at households. See, when you look at the urban, water is an integral part of the urban infrastructure. A sustainable building a
Nandini ji, Nandini ji.
How to address this water? We're looking at cities where the water is really, in a business state. Most of, yeah.
Nandini ji.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Please switch off your video so your audio quality will improve. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, better.
Better. You want me to repeat the question?
Yes, please repeat.
Okay. Okay. So, Dr. Lingaraju, I have a question. My first question would be addressing the urban areas. Because when you look at the urban areas, you're looking at, dried up water bodies. Your bore wells are completely dry. You've got tankers all over. Because when you look at the urban infrastructure, an integral part of urban infrastructure is water. And even if you're talking about sustainable buildings, green buildings, again, an integral part of that is water. But what is happening is you have apartment associations, reaching out to water tanks. You have individual houses reaching out to water tanks. And if you look at the cities, it's not like as if we don't have that much of rain. We have. But then the water is not actually percolating into the ground, and there is also overexploitation. So the way you addressed the rivers in the rural areas, what is your innovative solution to address this groundwater problem in the urban areas?
Yes, Nandini, shall I answer this? Yeah. As I was telling, the river basins is a broad canvas and it has a diversified land use. Like that, it is nothing but divide made by the topography. That means elevations and depressions. So some that we classify into watersheds, mini and micro watersheds. And these watersheds are small hydrological boundaries. And each hydrological boundary can be identified with the respective land use. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, doctor.
There is some noise. Each watershed boundary can be identified whether it is urban area or the rural area, forest area, industrial area, like that. And we have to plan the action that we have to take. Taking the example, in fact, all the ideas started with the river rejuvenation. I conducted a seminar in 2010 or so. So at that time, I had invited all the players, the stakeholders. The discussion was good, but nothing happened. Here, the thing is, the urban area, though it is small in the entire basin, which pollutes the entire basin. For example, Arpavati flows and around 400 square kilometers will pollute the 4,000 square kilometers of Arpavati. So the pollution starts. City, Bangalore city is sitting on a ridge. We have the divides, South Pennar, Arpavati, and North Pennar also to some extent. So these water divides will carry the water not only on the surface, even subsurface the water will be there. Now that Bangalore was such a very good terrain, which is though it is elevated, it had undulated terrain, which was very congenial for our ancestors to build series of tanks across these natural streams. So originally this area was so good, because of the altitude, the thing it has been getting now good rainfall, but because of the undulated topography, it was flowing a little slow. So people built many tanks across this, and it was a wonderful area with green vegetation and water everywhere. But because the developments took place, urbanization, without caring the natural setup. Natural setup means they take the example of the stream network. Each stream is like a nervous system which carries water not only on the surface, even below the surface to feed the groundwater. So these streams are encroached, diverted, filled up with silts, filled up with pollution. So this is also carried in the just like blood vessels. It carries the pollution and it stops the flow. So heart attack happens. The city is getting struck up with this kind of problems. One is the encroachment of the natural streams, what people are talking as Rajakalve now is being encroached and diverted. So many things are happening. So the natural flow cannot happen even if we get very quiet. It cannot flow in its own way, nature's way. So that natural management is distorted. So now that core Bangalore, what we can do? So it is very difficult to change the setup, but at least in the peripheral Bangalore, we can divide the whole greater Bangalore into small watersheds where there are some independent catchments. The streams starting from a small hillock and joining a water body can be divided as a cell or a unit of treatment, and we can prevent pollution in that areas, in the peripheral areas. We can plan this, whatever the river rejuvenation we have been doing. Even some land is occupied by somebody, that has to be acquired. And many buildings are coming up well within the water body. So that has to be avoided. So the concept of urban watershed management has to be brought, because one thing is in the core Bangalore area, the rainwater harvesting is a must, because the water will not reach the land, it will fall on the rooftops. So all that rooftop water is pure water that can be collected and used, that many people are doing. It is not a new thing, but recharging is a question mark, because even the BBMP has made some stormwater drains to recharge, but we do not know the geomorphology below that. In somewhere it can even create a waterlogged condition, somewhere it can recharge the groundwater, but because the lakes are built, parks are built in the parts of the lakes in many places. There we can even do some recharge structures after treating the water. And prevention is better than cure. Each and every house has to treat the water using the bioremedies, like using the enzymes, etc. And even that whole city can be divided into small watersheds where the treatment has to happen then and there. Then this kind of pollution catching fire will also be avoided. So similar way, this urban watershed management is the solution, and we have many ideas also, and the data is there. Lot of satellite images are there, the high resolution images are there, and it can be planned properly. And I have seen, I've been even part of the panel to discuss when it floods. When flash flood occurs, the corporates demand money for their area. They fight for their area. It is not like that. The entire Bangalore watersheds have to be considered as one unit. And if the rain occurs in one area, the flood will be in the adjoining area or the downstream area. So the grants are to be planned in the for the entire city after planning in a comprehensive manner, and also action plan should be specific to that watershed, and that kind of expenditure has to be incurred and planned. And what these NGOs can do, or the corporates can do, is even now we can just identify such peripheral area of the watersheds, and independent catchments can be protected. Many small streams start in the peripheral area also. From there itself, we start catching that water and converting into groundwater. And irrespective of the landowner, we have to give the priority for these kind of structures. It should be a very small area when compared to the entire the watershed. So this can happen. This has to be done if we want to save our city. And the satellite towns are also examples. And even small towns in the state are getting problem of drinking water, and pollution is increasing. So the smart city, whatever they plan, should include this natural resource management should be the priority. Then you can think of the other infrastructures. So this is the answer in brief.
Nandini ji, please unmute yourself.
Yeah, so I have two questions, Doctor, based on your response. One is, we are talking about the disappearing water bodies. In fact, Bangalore, just the metropolitan area was supposed to have some 1,521 water bodies earlier, which is like 2/3 of the urban district. Now we just have about 684. Now these are areas where like it's been concretized. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. So now we cannot sort of do anything. Fine, things have happened now, but these areas which were erstwhile lakes or tank beds, etc. Now they are natural. What shall we say? Naturally, they are structured to receive the water. Either they are in the downstream area, or probably that they are porous. It's not a rocky place, so they can sort of enable the water to be sucked into the ground. So how about? I mean, is there a technique by which we are not removing the buildings, but supposing like we have some kind of a technique where we create recharge wells in these areas, is that possible, Doctor? You understand what I mean? Like, where the rainwater actually percolates. So the natural function, the historic function of these regions are still retained, even though the concretization has happened. Is that possible?
Definitely, it is possible because we have very high resolution images, and also even that tools for analyzing it, like GIS and all these geospatial technologies, can be adopted and identify the priority areas. See where it is possible, where it is not possible, what is possible, all have to be analyzed in a way. What I told as mini or micro watersheds in that area. So if there is a lake, where from the water comes up, and is it Rajakalve or what, that feeding channel was a natural stream? That natural stream can take the water down, but we have to be careful. If the hazardous wastes are there, if you recharge that, it cannot be repaired. Groundwater recharged with the polluted water will create more problems. So we have to be very cautious in this, but it is possible in the peripheral Bangalore or a peri-urban area or whatever you call. See, even now there is scope. Irrespective of the ownership, we have to identify that kind of a natural setup and plan accordingly. Even if you have to acquire that kind of land, no matter we have to save our water bodies around Bangalore at least, so that it will not get copied by the core Bangalore. It should not happen like that in future. So there are ways and means to do it. There are technologies to do it. But only thing is these different stakeholders or authorities have to get together. The planning should be done scientifically, not politically oriented. It should be done in a comprehensive manner, covering the entire. The Bangalore has the radial drainage. It has streams flowing in different direction and becoming part of the different river basins. So even it is not only the interest of the Bangalore city, but also the interest of the entire basins, because this is the starting point of these river basins, and this whatever we pollute will be carried over into the rural areas also, and even the health of the downstream area also getting affected. So there are ways and means to do it, and a comprehensive plan has to be done. And there are technologies. We have Karnataka State Remote Sensing Application Center, which was I'm the founder of that institute, and there are ISRO organizations like Regional Remote Sensing Center is there, ISRO headquarters is there, and also many software companies who work with IT to develop these softwares are there. So there are ways and means. Only thing is we have to translate it with an integrated. That we can even take up some area and create a model, and those models can be replicated all around Bangalore. That is my suggestion.
If you're addressing the peripherals, doctor, would that also, like you're talking about a network? It's like nerves. You said, like, you know, it's kind of like veins where the water is flowing. Will the peripherals, addressing the watershed and the peripherals, will that also percolate into the core city in that case?
No, at least the people are carrying water from the potential area to the tankers. No? So that can be avoided in the peripheral area. But the groundwater in some places, it is reported because of the good water supply, borewells are not being operated. And water levels have come up in some areas also. But in some areas, there is no scope because it is so much concretized. The land use has changed and it is in the ridge. So there is no scope for recharging the groundwater in such areas. But however, another fear of polluting the groundwater is also is a constraint. First we have to prevent the water pollution. The water is available. Very good rainfall occurs here, and reuse of water is also a important issue. And this reuse is being done when it is highly concentrated. When it reaches Belandu or this Bairamangala, it is completely saturated. It requires more money to do that, and also it is impossible to bring back that kind of water. So when we divide this into the small watersheds of catchments, small catchments, then and there we have to go for small treatment plants, and the water should be allowed only when it is treated. There are different measures. One is bioremedial measures where it is this thing, and also the other so many technologies are there to separate this solid waste and also dissolved pollutants. That has to be taken care. Then only it is wise to recharge groundwater. Not that way it is only, blindly going for injection wells and all that in an urban area is not advisable. You have to understand it properly and also monitor the water levels, where it is going down, where it is coming up, or it is being polluted. To understand all that is necessary for urban watershed management.
Thank you, doctor. My last question would be: would you advocate that, you know, like we've got so many builders here in Bangalore, many major builders, probably you know, builders with a turnover beyond a certain limit? Would you advocate you know, making it mandatory for these builders to adopt a lake or, you know, a few water bodies as part of the CSR initiative, so that we could look at a better Bangalore?
Yes, it is my experience. Now in my project River Rejuvenation, so many players are getting together to make it fast. So like that in Bangalore, there are so many companies and corporates. At least to create some models, it should be possible. Then the government can take it over, and the money is there in the government for this kind of purposes. That has to be maybe. Copied. It is possible. Maybe Assocham can select one urban watershed, peri-urban watershed, and create a model. But strictly that ownership also has to be understood, and irrespective of the ownership, if a structure has to be made, that has to be strictly implemented. So even in some acquisition may be necessary, and identifying a perfect way of recycling when the rejuvenating this the entire hydrological system is very much important. It is possible.
Thank you so much, Doctor.
Yeah,
Neeraj, you may have some questions.
Yeah. Nandini ji, thank you so much for taking the questions. Dr. Yale, we have with us architect Lokendra Balasaria ji. He is the co-chairman of ASSOCHAM's GEM Gujarat chapter. So he was in the attendees list and he wanted to ask a question from you. So I thought I should shift him to the speaker section. So Lokendra ji, may I request you to ask the question?
Yeah, thank you so much, Neeraj. Dr. Lingaraju, it was wonderful listening to you. It was very nice, this whole issue of geohydrologists leading this whole campaign of understanding water management much better is something which we've been also supporting and promoting here. And unluckily, architects, planners, or civil engineers, they are not really taught about geohydrology. And I personally feel that without understanding geohydrological issues, it's incomplete in anyone's knowledge. It's an incomplete knowledge to take care of these things. My request to you is, can we work out training modules of this basic understanding of geohydrology, watershed management, rainwater harvesting, etc., as a program, as a learning program for habitat designers, basically planners, architects, and civil engineers, so that, because I know we can't take you everywhere, we'll love to have you everywhere helping us with this kind of mechanism, with this kind of knowledge. But probably, we can teach them the basic things. Most of the time, the water management doesn't happen because people are not aware of how to do it. So what do you feel? Can we design some courses, basic modules, learning modules for professionals?
Yes, definitely. Whatever the work so far we have done is bringing a lot of confidence in me. But I know that I have my limitation, as you said, age problem and all that kind of thing. But my dream is to create more water professionals, the engineers, geologists, or whatever the young people are there. We can train them according to their own terrain. I have visited Punjab. The images we can see more canals than the natural streams. The natural streams have become extinct and only canals are there. So there is great imbalance in the geological system of the Punjab. See, the very good geology is there, very good aquifers are there, which are dried up, and more depending on the surface water, and finally the whole natural way of recycling and reducing the operation losses and creating more potential is not happening. Nature had its earlier. We had a number of wells, the tube wells, which were yielding so high. But because after the dams were constructed and all this irrigation practices came, the land use drastic change in the land use. The soils which can percolate are really vanished. It is possible, and it is my aim also to train more and more youngsters, irrespective of their background, because it is not a rocket science. All this geology, geography, some principles with respect to, because each state has its own diversity, different types of geological formations are there. With that background, we can create the modules, training modules, maybe 10, 12 models are required for the entire India. That is there in the mind if somebody supports from the art of living side. We have been we are interested in doing that. Thank you for that question.
Sir, I'll be very glad to work with you on that, and I will try to get your contact directly and will later on get in touch with you and see if this knowledge can be spread to more professionals with your help. And India can probably do basic measures in all their projects, all their housing, habitat design. Thank you so much. It was wonderful listening to you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Architect Lokendra ji, for listening, for joining the program, listening to us. Thank you so much, and thank you so much, Dr. Yale, for answering the questions. All the questions from the audience, and thank you so much. Now, I would request Mr. Shivakumar ji. Shivakumar ji is the program chair of ASSOCHAM GEM Karnataka chapter. Shivakumar ji, I would request you to please extend a vote of thanks. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Neeraj. Honorable guest, Dr. Lingaraju, our respected chairman, Mr. Pankaj Darkar ji. Unfortunately, he couldn't join us today. Our chairperson, GEM Karnataka chapter, Architect Leena Kumar, Mrs. Uma Nair, Regional Director of ASSOCHAM, our most valued guests, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure for me to deliver vote of thanks on this occasion. On behalf of ASSOCHAM GEM and the entire team, I extend a very hearty thanks to one and all for gracing this occasion. A big thank you to our esteemed speaker, Dr. Lingaraju, for his efforts today on today's session on regeneration of rivers. I must mention, sir, our deep sense of appreciation for you, for your determination and wonderful and insightful speech today. We are all inspired by you, your great words, contribution to Mother Nature and the humanity. Finally, I would like to take this opportunity to place on record our hearty thanks to Neeraj ji and team for the perfect support and guidance to all of us. And a special thanks to our member, Ms. Nandini Sundar, for giving all of us the opportunity to know more about Dr. Lingaraju and his contribution. Thank you all very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank
Now,
you. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
With your permission, should I officially close the program?
Yes,
Please.
I think so. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Nandini ji. Thank you so much, Bindi Solapurkar ji. Shivakumar ji, thank you. Leena ji, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Ali Saab. Thank you. Anup, please close. Thank you.